Welcome back to the night and its moon. Last time, Amaris talked to the winged guys and learned that yes, they do look different to other people. She blamed everyone else for the problems that she clearly caused. The Flappy Boys, TM, are under a curse that makes them look demonic, but they have had zero conversations with anyone about it. Amaris didn't want to help the Birdmen because that would inconvenience her personally. She tried to sexually assault her friend using magic, and then he forgave her immediately. Actually, both her friends forgave her because she's just so special. Finally, we return to Millicent, who killed the red-headed girl using the evil hand that Millicent totally had all along. Hello, we're back. It's a different day. I'm always hopeful whenever I film a chapter that I'll film another chapter that same day, and then I never do. I don't know. I just looked at myself in the viewfinder and made myself sad. So, because I still have a very, 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 very light line on my COVID test, which means that Adam can't come home, which means that I'm still stuck here without my husband. And I don't know if you know this, but I like my husband. But we're here with chapter 19 anyway, so there's that. And we are with Knox, who actually, for the first time ever, I'm actually interested in following, because she's not Amaris, whom I hate, and she's no longer, at least currently to my knowledge, being forced into sexual slavery, so like, yes! The bar is in hell. The bar is so low. So we're with her after she lost her temper at not being able to seduce perfect Ash. Ash, who can resist sex demons. Ash, who's okay with being assaulted by his friend. Ash, who will never be mad at you, even if he's been pining after you his entire life. He's like, oh, okay, we almost had sex last night, but now you just say that you've never felt that way about me, and that's fine. Ash has perfect friend powers. Well, the chess metaphor is back. Allow me to take this opportunity to remind you that I have a fantasy romance where the chess isn't a metaphor. There's actually a sexually charged game of chess in the book. Check it out. Okay, she did target him because he looked like a reaver. She recognized his clothing style. Of all the weird plot points, this one is fine. I can suspend my disbelief on this one. Boy, it would sure be simple if all of them wore some kind of necklace, like witchers do. Because then she could just be like, oh hey, I'm so confused by this. So what if the boy's complexion matched her own? Is she saying that Ash has darker skin? Or is she saying that she is white, but then why bring it up? Nigel is just bumping my camera left, right, and center. Now I need to go look up fan art of Ash. Where's my phone? I spelled the night and it's mom. Wow. This woman knows how to market, though. She has candles of her characters. She has eat along with the characters of A Night and Its Moon. She has all of her playlists and everything. Pronunciation guides. Okay, we've got Gadriel. She has, like, character mood boards for Knox, where Knox definitely seems like a darker skinned person. But what about Ash? Okay, yeah, Ash is white. Ash is very white. At least according to her, like, character mood boards. So I do not understand what this line means. This is a long way to go, but I'm so confused. So what if the boy's complexion matched her own? Back to Knox being mad that she let this guy get away. She is, like, absolutely devastated that she let this happen, too, because she is under the impression that she was, like, this close to finding Amaris just because she had identified a man who kind of looked like the man who took Amaris all those years ago. I think you might be getting a smidge ahead of yourself there, Knox. Ugh, I'm getting such a crick in my neck. Like, holding this book up, it's heavy, it's awkward, so I set it down on my lap, and then I get a crick in my neck from looking down and reading it. Knox just thinking about how much she wants to find Amaris and how she's certain that Amaris is like somebody's servant somewhere, living a miserable life. So she's lamenting that she doesn't have any non-sexy clothes. You're in a city. Buy clothes. I'm sure you have plenty of money. Yeah, it says she tipped handsomely to stay undisturbed at this inn, so go buy some clothes. She's just sitting here being like, ugh, all my dresses are just too sexy. She sits at the edge of their fountain and almost puts her hand in, but then she's like, ew, no, dirty peasant fountain, and doesn't. She hears a story about a monster that we may or may not run into later from some guy in the town. Knox turned curiously to address the child, who appeared to be a child. The kid has come with exposition, though. The kid, out of nowhere, is just like, "There are demons, you know. My mama says they come from the north." I noticed you, a main character, sitting around town with nothing to do, and I figured I'd plop a quest hook in your lap. Knox has a brief moment of just wanting to, like, scoop this kid up and give her hugs, which, you know, it's cute, because obviously she's like, remembering how she used to feel about Amaris when she used to take care of Amaris. But that does lead to a bit of a thorny, like, feeling of, because she also wants to have sex with Amaris. And it's just a little bit odd. The juxtaposition. God damn, this little plot hook, little girl, is proving to be incredibly useful. Not only did she just come up and tell Knox, "Hey, there are demons in the area," but now she's like, "Yeah, the demons meet in my barn." Okay. No one asked you, child, but thank you.
What a crazy random happenstance.
So Knox is like, I need to meet your parents because they probably have more information. Will you take me to them? And the girl is immediately like, yeah. Which we could pass all of this off as Knox's, like, magical ability to draw people to her, except for we are told over and over again that it really only works on adults. Is this child really just that canny? Does this kid know a main character when she sees one? Honestly, I kind of want to read that story of a character in a fantasy book who, like, knows they're in a fantasy book and identifies the main character and just, like, goes to help him out. Of course, the girl's father is immediately, drooling, eyeballs popping out of his head, cartoon style, at the sight of Knox, and the little girl's mother is not pleased about this and is just glaring daggers at Knox the whole time. And Knox has invited herself to dinner, which seems like a terrible idea. Like, why not bypass the husband, just find the mother, talk to her woman to woman, and then leave? She calls the woman's husband weak-willed when she knows that she has supernatural hotness powers. Every man she's encountered has been drooling over her and falling over her, but she's like, yeah, the wife is right to be mad at her husband because he's so weak-willed. Judgy McJudgerson, you have magic sexiness powers. Oh, Knox' mount is glossy. Even her horse. Her horse is glossy, and can you guess the color of her horse? If you guess black, you are correct. Glossy black horse. I think you can take a drink for that as well. So we're getting a lengthy description. I've actually been reading in silence for quite a while of the dinner, the people, their house. Knox is pretty sure that the mom is, like, onto her. Like, the mom knows that Knox is not only just there because she wants to have dinner, but Knox is now contemplating, like, do I stay? Or do I pretend to leave and then sneak back around to the barn? I don't know why Knox is, like, really latched on to this I have to investigate these demons in the barn situation. But you know what? It's forward momentum, so I'm not going to argue with it. So, yeah, we just have more description of Knox riding away, then circling back around, then sitting there in the dark. And everything's just very, very overwritten. And then we finish the chapter with Knox thinking about Emily, the red-headed girl who she left behind and who now we know was turned old until she died. But then, at the last minute, Knox sees a flash of wings near the barn. And it looks like the next chapter is also from Knox's point of view, so, I guess I'm on board with the author deciding that she likes Knox again, and Knox is actually, like, doing things, even though they don't make a lot of sense. I'm still on board because, like, oh my goodness, did this book need a friggin' plot. So Knox is out here, she's doing shit, she's finding demons, better than what Amaris is doing. I'll see you again for the next chapter whenever that happens. And we're back. Different day. Same sweater, probably? Anyway, my latest obsession is Only Murders in the Building, which I know I'm late to the party for, but that's okay. And it took me a little while to get into it, but boy, am I ever hooked now. Steve Martin's character is me, so if you're ever wondering what my personality is like in real life, that. Let's get on to chapter 20, where I think we're still with Knox and she's doing things, so I am on board. Let's turn on the light so I can actually see what I'm reading. So I thought the author was about to do something kind of interesting, where she's like, Knox had always considered herself brave because everything always seemed to go her way, even scary situations. And then I thought she was going to realize, Oh, it's because I have always been able to charm my way out of those situations. I've always been able to deal with them using my powers, but now I'm like sneaking out to a barn and there might be demons and my powers aren't really going to help me with that. But instead her takeaway was that she'd never had the opportunity to be truly afraid. What about when you were taken from the orphanage as a little girl to be sold into sexual slavery? You weren't afraid then? Sure. What about when they were going to whip you? No? You were fine? Okay. I don't know if it's just because I like Knox better, but I'm like way more entertained by the misadventures of Knox than anything else. She goes up to the barn door and she like opens it, and the author lets us have a comedic moment at the expense of a character. It's one of those barn doors that split in half and she didn't realize that, so only the top part opened. And I mean, that's entertaining. Like, let your characters have silly shit happen to them. Of course she over-describes it and drags the moment out too long, but it was still a good moment. So Knox hears people talking, but she can't make out the language, and then we just go on. That prompts a lengthy memory of a person that she met while working at the Selkie who was a quote-unquote monolinguist, which meant that he had a magic that allowed him to understand every language. And that's cool and all, but like, do we have to have paragraphs and paragraphs about him? It's like 2 pages of her memories of this guy, who is not important and will never come up again, I'm betting. She knew in the pits of her stomach. Apparently her stomach has more than one pit. Of course, it is a bit lucky that the demons are convening in the barn again tonight, but maybe they just chill there every night, and she hears them and she's like, they're not speaking the common language, but I can still understand them, probably because she's also a magical person. So we can figure out through context clues that the first 2 people talking are the people that have been interacting with Amaris, but there's a 3rd person. Okay, now Knox thinks that there's more than 3 up there. Gadriel, one of the sexy boys from Amaris' scene, is convincing the others, like, she's the one, she's the special one.
You're the special!
So she overhears that the king of these demon people is looking for something. And immediately my mind went, his long-lost daughter. But the real question is Amaris his long-lost daughter, or is Knox? I'm assuming Amaris because she's always the most special one, but you never know. So finally, the Birdmen are like, well, how do we recognize this super awesome girl? And, of course, the 2 are like, it's really obvious, she's super white. And Knox is like, ugh. They describe her as white as the moon, which of course Knox knows has to be Amaris. So Knox is so frickin' awestruck that she's found Amaris through, I must say, some of the most contrived series of events I've read in a long time. She passes out. She fucking faints. When she wakes up, she's still on the barn floor and the demons are gone. I actually have a suspicion that the author made her faint because the author didn't know what to do. Like, after the reveal, she was like, okay, what do the demons do? What does Knox do? I don't know, I'll have her faint and wake up later so she doesn't have to deal with them. She doesn't like her horse very much. She's constantly shading it, and I do not approve. Be nice to your horsey, Knox. So she gets back to the city, and she goes to her inn, and she's just putting her horse away, and she doesn't notice a glossy black carriage. Is glossy the only descriptor that this author has for anything that is black? But then it says, a sharp voice preened to her from the shadow looming against the carriage's side. Preened? The voice preened to her. Sometimes, Piper, you still amaze me. And of course it is Millicent, and she's back. And we will have more of her in the next chapter, because the next one is Knox. The author seems to realize that, hey, Knox is the most interesting character. And even though we had to have an incredibly contrived plot device to get Knox back into this story of a little girl literally just coming up and giving her the plot on a silver platter, at least there is one. She's trying to find Amaris. More plot than we've had this entire book.
Real quick, I know I've mentioned it before, but you can check out my fantasy books, including a fantasy romance with queer characters in it. But I personally think you'll find the diversity in my book far less cringy and, quite frankly, less confusing. Plus, the horses in both books are cool characters in and of themselves, instead of just transportation for the main character to be mad at for some reason.
Hey, hello. Welcome back to Julian's Masterpiece Theater. I finally had a negative COVID test. Yay! Yay! Adam is home. Yay, he's taking a nap. But we are gonna take this moment to read a little bit more, because I was gonna do that today, and I think this chapter, yeah, this is a nice short chapter. So we're gonna get back with Knox and the madam, I think, one last time before we have to go back and hang out with stupid Amaris. Ah, yes. The author has fallen into the thing that she does whenever a character is faced with a situation. Rather than have the character deal with the situation, the character always locks up. Her characters have a fight, flight, or freeze. Her characters all freeze. And so Knox, who is still on a horse, by the way, and could just like turn that horse around and book it. This is a big fancy horse. This is probably a well-bred horse that could run real fast and real far. But of course, she is too shocked upon seeing the mistress, and so she is just locked up like a computer. We keep getting shade about her horse. Her horse is being mildly disobedient, and she says it was not a loving animal. Well, maybe if you spent some time with it and got to know it, maybe fed it a few treats, maybe brushed it out yourself, then it would be a loving animal. But you're not giving it a chance. You're just like, my horse is a jerk.
So now all I can picture is like a little Piper CJ being taken to some bougie riding stable as a child, where she had all of these notions about how horseback riding was going to be this beautiful thing, and she was immediately going to bond with every horse, only to find out that horses have personalities, and the first horse she met didn't immediately take to her, and therefore she decided that horses were actually kind of jerks. And so all of the horses she writes are like either just transportation or kind of jerks.
So she's given up immediately, of course. If I run into the inn, would they be able to protect me? And I'm like, ma'am, you have a horse. And she's like, well, I can't use my powers on Millicent. And it's like, I cannot gesture any more strongly that you need to just get on that horse and ride away. Also, has she been riding side saddle this whole time? Or is she just like rubbing her parts up against this saddle? Because she's wearing a slinky dress, so you can bet that that's pulled all the way up to her waist whenever she's riding astride. And Knox is like, well, the direction I need to go is in the same direction as the brothel, so this actually makes sense. What the fuck, Knox? You were intelligent there for a minute, and then it all flew away. We're just not pretending that this is not a video game anymore, because she asks if the mistress can fast travel. What are you gonna do, Knox? Unequip horse? The mistress does explain that while she cannot fast travel, she does have a mysterious item that she's totally had this whole time. Don't ask questions. But Knox really, like, especially hates horses, because she thinks uncharitably about her horse. She thinks that the horse that's pulling the carriage is obnoxious. Like, she goes out of her way to insult these animals. You were my favorite character, but you're trying real hard to lose that position. So she gets in the carriage with the madam because plot. Knox is particularly drawn along by the strong hand of the writer. And then Knox did this. Why? Because she did. Because I needed her to do this and go here, so she did. I need her to find information, so I will drop in a child to just tell her. I need her to go back with the madam. Well, the madam is just here, and she has had a magical device this whole time. And then Knox could run away again, but she just decides to go with the madam, because all of a sudden she lost every brain cell she ever had. Maybe it's better that Amaris is just sort of roaming around, untethered and seemingly aimless. Like, Amaris is supposed to have an aim, but it feels really aimless. And maybe it's better that way, because when the author has a very clear aim for a character, she does not do things like cleverly plotting out how the character would get into that situation, and instead just puts them there. Now, it is possible, I will grant you, that perhaps the madam, being some sort of weird magical creature herself, has an ability to charm Knox's mind and make Knox think that going with her is the best idea. Oh, apparently the madam's carriage can fold space. Knox had never heard of such devices that allowed the mat before you to fold, just as if it were no more than a piece of paper, with one destination meeting its opposite through the crease as they poked through locations. Okay, so we need to do some work on this sentence, but it's basically doing that explanation of folding space that everybody gives you, where they show you a piece of paper, and then they're like, look, you join the two ends of the piece of paper, and you can stick the pencil through.
It folds space so that point A and point B coexist in the same space and time. When the spacecraft passes through the gateway.
The ant's quickest option is to walk across a string, right?
Right.
See? The ant arrives in my other hand instantaneously.
So you fold space.
Madam is just like, she has whatever magical device that she needs. Basically, the author is just hand-waving it away like, there are magical devices in this world, so we, the reader, should just be prepared that whenever we need a MacGuffin, a magical device will appear to be exactly that. Personally, I don't like that very much. Other people, it might not bother so much, but I am not a big fan of, well, I'll just have a magical device do it whenever I need it to.
It also definitely feels like the author didn't have this idea until now, because at the beginning of the book, when Knox is taken away with the mistress, it mentions that it takes them a really long time to get to where they're going. Why wouldn't the mistress use her space-folding carriage back then? It's because the author just thought of it now.
So Knox realizes that the madam will probably lock her up when they get back, but she's fine with it, apparently. She's like, yeah, that's gonna happen, and I totally got in this carriage of my own volition. Oh, now she's decided to stand up for herself.
She needs to sort out her priorities.
She would not allow herself to detach. She would not disassociate. She would stand up for herself. Where was this when you could have left? Because you're stuck now. You're trapped in a magical space and time folding carriage. I don't know how I feel about a potentially brown-skinned girl being called Rabid, but I'm just gonna leave it there so you know it exists and you can form your own thoughts about it. But she's fighting against the mistress now. She's also called Feral. She's been called Rabid and Feral. So she's like, I need to get out of this carriage. I'll just throw myself from the carriage and run away. You had a horse before. Plot-wise, why do we have her have to get in the carriage and get most of the way home? But the mistress managed to get one of her gloves off and hit Knox with her aging powers, just a little bit.
You do know you gave me an evil hand, right?
Also, these two women fought like stereotypical women. They scratched and clawed at each other and pulled each other's hair. Instead of, I don't know, if I was Knox, I would have been throwing punches. But now the mistress has gone and done it. Just a little zap of her power and Knox is like out. Knox is in a coma. But this is also going to get Knox out of the story for a while so we can get back to, yay, Amaris. Oh my goodness, for a very long chapter, of course. Of course, we'll probably be able to find at least one place where that chapter could be split. Well, I'm going to have to make sure I dedicate enough time for that, because that is going to be a chunky one. But thanks for watching today. Knox was my favorite character, but then she was mean to her horse, and now she's in a coma. So, don't know if she can be my favorite character anymore. But we'll see if and when she comes out of it. We're making progress. We're getting there. I'll see you for the next chapter.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
Louisa, Unicorn Jenny, Celia, Neon, Taya, Alyssa, Rita, Deborah, My 96, Afra, Melissa, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Light Julie, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, Sarah, and Hidden Glade.
All right, now. You ready, Maxwell? You behave yourself? You're gonna give me bucks. Come on. Oh. Alright. Whoa.
Whoa. How'd you do?